Welcome back to Forward Progress, presented by Fanduel. We are back, and we're going to be taking a look at 6 players who we think will smash expectations in 2025. And before we get into the video, I want you to comment down below who your number 1 player is to smash expectations before we get into the video. Host here, Jason Cooper, alongside Rob Pizzola. Rob, let's not waste any time here. Let's dive right into it. You have a wide receiver, a tight end, a quarterback who you think are going to smash expectation. I have a wide receiver, running back, and a quarterback who I think will smash expectations. Let's start with your wide receiver, though. Who do you have as a player who will smash expectations?
Yeah, so for this, it's twofold. I look at where they're being mocked in terms of fantasy, in terms of ADP, and also how they were priced in terms of player prop markets last year, and guys that I think will be really good overs, especially early on in the year, like guys who are coming in a little bit under the radar, and that's kind of how I'm classifying breakout. So I'll start with the Carolina Panthers and Xavier Legette. Let's be clear, he stunk as a rookie. He had less than 500 yards, drops, inconsistent route running. The numbers were bad. Like I'm looking at his separation numbers right now. Wide receiver 92 in separation. Wide receiver 279 in yards after catch. Drop rate was 14%. These are absurdly bad numbers. But let's remember, he was playing the X role, primary outside receiver. That's the hardest job in an offense for a rookie wide receiver. He's tethered to the line of scrimmage. He's facing press coverage. He's drawing the opposing quarterback one on most of his snaps. He still led the team in end zone targets. He showed some flashes of what he can do over the course of the year. The vertical stuff was rough, but a lot of that was scheme, in my opinion, early in the year. And frankly, Bryce Young didn't really come around till late in the year. He struggled to hit open receivers early on in the year as well. So we fast forward to this year. Carolina spends a first-round pick on Tet. That's good news for Legette, in my opinion, because McMillan being there, his presence means Legette no longer has to face the other team's top corner every week. It allows him to shift to a more favorable alignment, maybe less time as a split end and more motion or slot usage, which will get him some clean releases. Thielen isn't cooked, but he's 34. He can still contribute, but he's not the focal point of the offense. So to me, if Legette stays healthy and he takes a step forward in terms of technique this year, he's going to easily outperform these low expectations. We're talking about a guy whose receiving props are going to be in probably the low 30-yard range early on in the season. That's very beatable if the target share stays stable for him. So I'm not projecting a wide receiver 1, but I do think there might be a little bit of a market inefficiency on them. And I'm going to play a lot of alt overs in certain matchups, especially versus teams that have weak cornerback 2s. I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes with like 800 plus yards this year, 6 or 7 TDs. And I think that blows away what his current baseline is.
Yeah, I love Xavier Legette from that sense. Also, just like a small anecdotal thing, like he looks absolutely shredded in this offseason. Been watching some Carolina Panthers offseason stuff. Also, you mentioned it earlier, targeting his alt overs. You already know like what the first. I think week 5 is the first Carolina Panthers primetime game. If it's early on, I think it is. If it's early on in the year, anyways, I'm going to be hammering those inverse correlations under Xavier Legette receptions over alt receiving yards. Love that. What for you, Xavier Legette, as our first breakout candidate. The second one we have, and the one that I picked for my wide receiver, I feel like this one is kind of obvious. I feel like a lot of people are kind of targeting this guy to be a breakout candidate in 2025, but it also just felt wrong creating a list of breakout candidates and leaving him off. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., who last year had 62 receptions, 885 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. What I'm using to kind of contextualize what I feel is a breakout, I'm going to be using fantasy rankings, best ball rankings. Right now, he's ranked wide receiver 14 in best ball, wide receiver 19 in fantasy. The biggest thing for me, Marvin Harrison Jr. has everything that you need from a wide receiver 1 in terms of target share, in terms of ability, and in terms of usage. Last year, he was second in team targets. He had 22%, only behind Trey McBride. Michael Wilson was third. James Conner was fourth. They don't spread the ball too much in this offense. It's really Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. who are the real alphas. A big problem with a lot of his targets, he had 116 targets and only 62 receptions. He had a 69% catchable ball rate, which is 104th among 132 qualified wide receivers. When Kyler Murray was throwing him the ball, it wasn't the most catchable balls. And on top of that, just looking at his utilization, Judah has some tweets out about separation split up between downfield routes, in routes, out routes. Marvin Harrison Jr. really struggled with his downfield routes creating separation and was much better creating separation on his in and out breaking routes. So I wonder if maybe this offseason, Drew Petzing takes a step back, takes a look at that and says, hey, maybe we're scheming him too much on these deep routes, and maybe we want some more in and out breaking routes for Marvin Harrison Jr. just to kind of complement his strengths a little bit more. And then on top of that, everyone remembers that, I forget which week it was, but there was that one clip of Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open in the end zone doing jumping jacks, waiting to get the ball from Kyler Murray, and he just never got the ball. They were very much not in sync, which tends to happen for a first-year wide receiver. So with another year under his belt, a little bit more chemistry built up between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., getting him some better balls, I really think Marvin Harrison is in a prime position to smash as a breakout in 2025.
I hate agreeing with you on things. It's one of my least favorite things to do in life. I had Marvin Harrison Jr. shortlisted for this video as well, but I already received so much flack from the Shocking Teams video that we did where people were upset with who I gave out on that specific video, where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give out someone that's really obvious here. Obviously, great pedigree for him. I do think I agree with a lot of what you said there, Jason. Just a lot of things didn't work in his favor last year. If you also look at the separation numbers, they did improve as the year went on as well. So I think getting adjusted to the league was big for him. I just think it's a little bit too obvious. So I don't know that you're going out on a limb here, but I will say I do agree. I think he's in for a big season.
All right. For the next two, I'm going to do my best to go out on a limb. Before we get into our 4 other players who we feel like we can smash expectations, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at Fanduel. It might be the offseason, but if you want to bet on the NFL and NFL futures, Fanduel is the place to go for that actions. They have tons of props available, including awards markets, who's going to win the Super Bowl, to win the NFC, to win the AFC, hell, even player props, who's going to get the most passing yards in 2025. My favorite of them all, win totals that you can parlay together only at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/forward progress to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/forward progress. I don't want to bury the lead here, Rob, but your next player, it's a tight end. It's for your favorite team.
Yeah.
Tell us why you think he's ready to break out in that crowded wide receiver room.
Yeah, I always like to preface anything I say Dallas Cowboys because people see the logo behind me and they're like, oh, the homer pick or whatever. For those who have, just finding these videos, I very often bet against my favorite teams. I'm not a homer when it comes to this stuff. I think Jake Ferguson, though, is one of the best buy low candidates in football this year. 2 years ago, breakout season, 71 catches, 761 yards. He was an absolute monster. Then last year, the wheels came off. He dealt with injuries. Dak Prescott obviously missed the latter half of the year. The Cowboys offense became a shell of itself. He still managed 59 catches, nearly 500 yards. That's not a bad, quote unquote, down year when you're just looking at things. But you look ahead to this season, the upside is absolutely there. Dak is back and healthy. Dallas has added George Pickens to pair with CeeDee Lamb. That is a nightmare for opposing teams in terms of coverage situations. You cannot double both wideouts and still have enough bodies to account for a guy like Ferguson in the middle of the field. So I think the opportunity is there. Now, I'm not blindly projecting a pass-heavy Cowboys offense. I think that's still going to be an unknown. Brian Schottenheimer has been promoted to head coach now. Clayton Adams is a bit of a mystery in terms of how he will run the offense for them or how much input he'll actually have versus Schottenheimer. It might be a balanced attack. It might even be a run-heavy attack. But here's what we do know. When Dak is under center and the offensive line is intact, he loves going to Jake Ferguson in third down situations, red zone situations. And now, again, that you have CD and George Pickens, there's just so much more field available for a guy like Jake Ferguson. So I think he's a guy, especially early in the year, you're going to see his props hovering around 3.5 catches, 30-yard ranges, probably TD ranges of plus 225 to plus 250. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of Jake Ferguson this year. I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end in terms of fantasy. I think he's going to hit his props at a high rate. And eventually the market's going to have to adjust to the fact that Dak loves this guy over the middle of the field. And they just have other weapons that are going to open up the field entirely for him.
Yeah, and people tend to forget that. I mean, not that they forget, but This team is a lot different, obviously, with Dak Prescott as their quarterback, and it feels like that gets missed a little bit. Right now, going around the 140 ADP range, like tight end 10-ish, I mean, that feels way too low. So if you're one of those fantasy players, maybe a best ball player, might be good to take a swing late at Jake Ferguson, maybe get a little Dak Prescott stack in there for some best ball teams. Could be a little smash spot for you and might make the difference in your draft. Rob, you went with the tight end. I want to go with a running back. Right now, this guy is running back 33, and I was a little shocked when I saw it. I was like, really? Him this low? I love looking at players to break out. I love looking at like kind of post-type sleepers. Guys who were supposed to break out last year who maybe didn't as in terms of maybe it was their injury issues, maybe it was their situation. For this player in particular, it was his situation. Jaylen Warren is who I have as a breakout candidate for 2025. Last year, 120 carries, 511 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 38 receptions, and 310 receiving yards. The biggest thing for him coming in right now, it's year 4 for him. Second year with the Steelers fourth year for the Steelers, but second year with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. He's a talented runner, 11.7% explosive run rate, which is 17th among qualified running backs, 2.9 yards after contact, which is 14th among qualified running backs. He can win after contact. He's explosive. And the biggest thing here is the touches, right? Najee Harris, he's now gone. That's over 300 touches that need to be redistributed within the Steelers. So, listen, I get it. You're probably saying, hey, they added Kenneth Gainwell in free agency. Listen, I'm not afraid of Kenneth Gainwell. I don't think he's that great of a talent. Right. Well, wait. They drafted Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round. Caleb Johnson, sure, rookie, but I don't think that I'm curious if they trust him enough to be the guy to take on all 300 of those carries. I doubt it. Also, on top of that, in his 35 games in college, he only had 29 receptions. Now, I get that. He played for Iowa. They don't throw the ball a ton, but 29 receptions. Come on. This is the biggest thing for me, the game script. If the Steelers go into 2025 with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback, the game script is going to be there. They're going to be in trailing games, and that's when Jaylen Warren is going to come in and play the most for this team. So last year, he had, 150 touches. This year, I could see if he gets even a quarter of Najee Harris's touches, that's 225 touches for Jaylen Warren. And with that, he has the opportunity, he has the explosive playability, continuity within the offense. I think he's going to be primed for a breakout in 2025.
That's really interesting because I was going to say the opposite about the quarterback situation, but it makes a lot of sense with the emphasis on the passing attack late in games. I like Jaylen Warren as a player. I mean, anyone who watched Steelers games, whenever Najee Harris would get the ball, it just looked like he was a plodding running back with no burst. And anytime Warren was in there, you almost felt like there was some level of explosiveness. A big play could go off at any time. I am genuinely concerned about the quarterback situation, though, because if you go into the year with, Mason Rudolph and who's like Will Howard, I think, would be the backup, maybe Skylar Thompson for them as well, that's a terrible quarterback room. And opposing teams are just not going to respect your quarterback play, and they're going to stack the box at the end of the day because they know that the Steelers want to run the ball. Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, these are guys that are like smash mouth football type of situation. So I would ordinarily think that would hurt RB1. But I think you do bring up a valid point where potentially he makes up for a lot of that in the passing game later on, especially when you do have a bad quarterback like a Mason Rudolph who might dump it off a lot more than someone, a better quarterback in the league that would push downfield. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Love the player, just don't necessarily love the situation.
Situation is tough, but at RB33, he's currently going behind Caleb Johnson in drafts. I just think that's wrong. They should be flipped at the very least. Caleb Johnson going around RB29. I think I like Jaylen Warren just to outperform his expectations. On top of that, he only had 1 touchdown last year. If we're talking fantasy purposes, definitely late in games, if we're going to be trailing, if they're going to be down 2 scores and he's in the game, you could see him getting a little bit more in garbage time there. Let's close it out here. Quarterbacks. We got 2. I feel like people can guess, and if you want to guess in the comments before each of us say, I want to see if you guys can guess this right. You can probably guess mine, but Rob, I actually like yours. So tell us which quarterback you think is going to smash in 2025.
I think people who followed me for a while now might be able to guess mine as well. I've been happily married to my wife Diana for 13 years, but I'm not scared to admit that I do have a hard-on for Drake May as well. I just think Drake May exhibits a lot of, especially in his rookie year, with a really bad offensive line situation and a horrendous coaching staff, exhibited a lot of glimmer that would have you excited going into this year. Now, let's be honest. A lot of his rookie production came in garbage time. I'm not an idiot. I'm aware of that. The Patriots are trailing constantly. May was forced to make plays when the game was already decided. But that doesn't mean it wasn't valuable experience. I think he still flashed a lot of tools. He has mobility, very good touch, in my opinion. He can extend plays under pressure. And yes, the Pats might be bad again this year. It probably will be the case. But garbage time counts the same on the stat sheet and on your props and in your fantasy pools. And the infrastructure around him this year is night and day compared to last season. Mike Vrabel, now the head coach, that might raise eyebrows for some people because they're like, well, he's a run-heavy reputation from Tennessee where they pounded the rock with Derrick Henry, a ton. Here's the thing, though. Vrabel and his coaching staff in Tennessee got the absolute best out of Ryan Tannehill when he was there. A guy who, frankly, does not have the arm talent or the dual threat upside that Drake May does. And the Pats, they didn't bring in Derrick Henry to run 30 times a game. That's not what's happening here. They added other real talent around him. Stephon Diggs, obviously partying on boats, but he's going to be there for week 1 of the season. Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, Travion Henderson as well. So a more functional offensive line, a real wide receiver for a change, a pass-protecting running back. That's how you support a young quarterback. And they brought in Josh McDaniels to call plays. Say what you want about his head coaching ability, which I think is very poor, but he's a proven OC who knows how to build a system around a quarterback's strengths. So I just think that this is the year where Drake May has more tools available to him. And situationally, it's just working for him. I think this is truly the breakout year for him. And kind of has to be if he's going to be a franchise quarterback, because the excuses were all there last year. I mean, abysmal offensive line play, no weapons on the outside. I mean, Gerard Mayo, I can't even say a good thing about him. Like he was horrendous. So I think this is the year Drake May takes a big step forward.
Yeah, and of course, I like what you mentioned there in terms of how poor their offensive line is. They really made an effort to kind of upgrade it, grabbing Will Campbell. They grabbed Morgan Moses. Yep. Wide receiver room is big for me. I hope Diggs doesn't get cut. I hope he doesn't get,
that would
like
be
we'll know what happened. We don't know what will happen there. And if someone's watching this video a couple weeks down the road and no Stephon Diggs, but hey, at least their wide receiver room has a little bit more depth than last year. The 2 wide receivers they drafted, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, maybe they can improve in year 2. They didn't look too good last year.
They also got Kyle Williams, I think, in the third round. Who will be listen, like these aren't household names, but the Patriots wide receiver room has been horrible for so long now. To actually have Diggs there is huge. And it just pushes everyone down a spot, right? Like Demario Douglas has to do less now, right? Kayshon Boutte, I think Mac Hollins is there now as well.
Yeah, Mac
Kendrick
Hollins
Bourne,
is there
right?
as well.
It's not great, don't get me wrong, but you upgrade both tackles and head coach, offense. I think the tools are there. I mean, at the end of the day, I've been a fan of Drake May. I don't want to say since college, but I've been a big fan of his game at the professional level, even though the stats just generally haven't been there. And I think he's been a victim of really horrendous situation.
Yeah, currently going in best ball drafts, quarterback 15-ish. There's kind of a glut between the 9th and 11th round. He's towards that tail end. I could definitely see, especially with his running ability, which is kind of sneakily underrated, him finishing a little bit higher than quarterback.
He's an athlete, 15. Man. He can move.
For sure. And on top of that, in best ball weeks, he could have multiple weeks where he gets upwards of 30 points in best ball with his running production as well. Could be a smash spot for you late in rounds. Time for the last pick. Time for my guy. Everyone knows who I'm going to go with.
I don't even know, but I know. We didn't talk about this video beforehand, but I know. This is a minus 1,000 might be short in terms of who you're going with here because you're a big USC fan, obviously. So I'm just going to, this has to be Caleb Williams here.
It's obviously Caleb Williams. It can't be anyone else other than Caleb Williams. And, listen, we heard it all before, right? We know how poorly last season went. We heard it. He held the ball for too long. He was 5th in time to pressure, 14th in time to throw among qualifying quarterbacks. He was sacked a lot, 68 sacks last year, abysmal, 28% pressure to sack rate. Not intercept. He didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but he was completely inaccurate. He led the league in bad throws, had one of the highest uncatchable ball rates, or the lowest catchable ball rates. That's what I'm trying to say here. Among deep balls. And I get that. That's fine. That's all fair criticism. Holds the ball too long, gets sacked too much. But why? let's take a look under the hood. Why is this happening? Is he really a bad quarterback? Was everybody in the NFL world wrong about Caleb Williams? Was everybody in the scouting world wrong about Caleb Williams? Is he really just a bad player and we all just missed him? Well, I want to say no to that because I'm going to take a look at an article that was written a couple weeks ago about some quarterbacks. And one of the names mentioned was Caleb Williams. And a lot of people made a big hubbub because Caleb Williams tried to not get drafted by the Bears. And you know what? That's fair. But we do know another player who's done that before, Eli Manning in particular. Jeff knows that very well. Got drafted by the Chargers, decided to get traded, forced his way to get traded to the New York Giants. Anyways, we've seen this before, but he decided to stay with the Bears. And the biggest thing from this article wasn't that, which everyone seemed to make a big stink about. The biggest thing was this quote right here. This book sheds light on Williams' tumultuous rookie season, in which both Eberflus and Waldron were fired, and the Bears lost 10 straight games. At times, Williams said he would watch film alone with no instruction or guidance from the coaches. No one tells me what to watch, Caleb Williams told his dad. I just turn it on and watch.
Yeah.
Is that a good situation for a rookie quarterback? Not only quarterback, any development. I know kids, we're from Canada. I know kids who play hockey that are 13 years old and have video coaches who sit down and watch with them. We're talking an NFL team here that wasn't running video with their number one pick, okay? The situation was horrible, and I get it. You can say Drake May's situation was also horrible. I really think the coaching and everything under the hood was really bad, okay? Fine. That's all done with now. Let's look at the improvements. Of course, you get rid of Shane Waldron. You get rid of Matt Eberflus. Horrible head coaches. You bring in Ben Johnson. Absolute stud of an offensive mind. We know all about it. Let's take a look at their offensive line upgrade, all right? Coleman Shelton, 18th ranked center. Matt Pryor, 31st ranked guard. Telvin Jenkins, 18th ranked guard. You're swapping those guys out for Jonah Jackson, who PFF grade has him around the 30th ranked guard. Not the best,
but previously pretty reliable as well when he was with Detroit.
On top of that, with Detroit, Ben Johnson knows a lot about him. There's a reason why they brought him in. 4th best center, according to PFF, and Drew Dahlman. 7th best guard in Joe Thuney. You make massive improvements on the interior defensive line. On top of that, the weapons around him. We know about Romo Dunze. We know about DJ Moore. Romo Dunze in his second year, we talked about him as a chance of being a player who could get better, maybe a long shot that you could take on him earlier in the offseason. You're swapping out the corpse of Keenan Allen. You're bringing in Luther Burden, who some had a low-end first-round grade on. You draft Colston Loveland in the first round, whose comp is Sam Laporta, so we can imagine how his usage is going to be, how he's going to be used in this offense under Ben Johnson. Like, all the pieces are there. Everything is there for this guy to succeed. Now, if you want to be the guy to stand in front of the NFL train and stand in front of all these scouts and say, you know what, Caleb Williams isn't a good player, everyone was wrong, that's on you. You can do that. I'm not going to do that. I still believe in Caleb Williams. Everything is in place for him to improve this season. Yes, I understand all those things that I said before. He was inaccurate. He held on to the ball too long. He took too many sacks. But everything is in place for him to not do that anymore and to finally achieve what he's been expected to do at the NFL level. And if you don't agree with me, I don't know what we're looking at. I think we're looking at two different situations here.
Yeah. Like, to your point, I talked about the Bears wide receivers when we talked NFL futures last week and how I love the situation for them. That's very much tied to Caleb Williams having a step forward this year, right? And I think the theme of this video, Jay, has been, we're looking at situations where a player was in like a really bad spot last year and had to overcome a lot, and they just couldn't do it. And now they're not facing those same challenges. I think that applies to Caleb Williams. I think he's honestly in a great situation this year, and he was horrendous last year, like brutal. You watch the games, he looked like he sucked as a quarterback. But this is someone who has a pedigree of a first overall pick, and you put them in a situation where O-line improves, better coaching staff, good receivers, like drafting a tight end in the first round, the opportunity's there. So I agree with you. I think if we're talking offseason next year and Caleb Williams did not have a good 2025, then we really got to sound the alarm bells, because I love the situation for him this year. And I agree with you on this one as well.
Yeah, everything is built for him to succeed. And I think something that was frustrating for me as a fan watching last year was how well he played in that Commanders game. But it will not be remembered because of the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary at the end of the game. Like, he led the charge on a last, like, a 2-minute drill drive, looked really good in situations. There were spots where Caleb Williams looked good, and I think people are forgetting that. There were spots where he was bad, But he did have flashes of greatness last year, and I'm gonna hope that we see more flashes of greatness in 2025. Do you have any honorable mentions? Because I have like 2 names that I was gonna mention.
I had Marvin Harrison Jr. and from the same team, Trey Benson as well.
Okay.
Was someone that I thought could possibly. I mean, listen, obviously, split running back situations are always challenging, but I like a lot about Benson's situation this year. Honestly, there's tons of players we could have gone through here and probably could have extended this to 10 per team, but that's where I was sitting at. I feel really strongly about Jake Ferguson of everyone here. I think Xavier Legette is more of a punt, but I just think like he's being cast off like as a nothing, like complete bust at this point, and I don't necessarily agree that that's the case. Yeah,
I'm just going to throw out just Michael Penix out there as well, because towards the last half of the year, or when he was playing, he looked really good. Didn't take a lot of sacks. Talked about with Judah in the last episode of Forward Progress here. I think he's a guy who, I mean, has a chance to be a really good quarterback, which also makes me excited about the league this year, is that we have all these good quarterbacks coming in last year looking to take a step and make an improvement. Anyways, that just about does it for today's video. If you enjoy the content, do us a favor. Please smash that like button. If you're new to the channel as well, hit the subscribe button. Let us know, like I mentioned off the top, who your breakout players are. Do you agree with us? Are these breakout players? Did Marvin Harrison Jr. already break out? Does that even count as a breakout candidate? Who knows? You let us know in the comment section down below. And then one more thing before we head out. In the pinned comment, guys, we have a Q&A that we're going to be running next week. Just drop your comments down there. Could be on anything. Could be a hot take. Could be your opinion on something. Or if you're just curious about the NFL in general, drop us all your questions in that link, and we'll be sure to answer them here on the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.